to the Madison County Public Library. We're so glad that you're here today. We have a very special show. It is Native American storytelling with a TV and some museum artifacts. So really cool stuff. Before I go into that anymore, I want to talk a little bit about next week. Next week's special performance is the outdoor petting zoo. So that's going to be very fun. So that will be next Thursday at 10:30. And alright, so back to Native American Indians. Raise your hand if you have Native American in your family. Like you think that somewhere, your grandma or your great-grandma, or some of you do. Alright. Lots of people that are here in the United States have Native American Indians in their family. As we're doing our show, I have something special with me. This is called the answer stick. Okay? So, as we're doing this, sometimes there will be questions, and we will pass this out to the person who will answer. So, we're not going to raise our hands. You will just get chosen, and we'll give you the answer stick, and then you can answer. You do?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a arrowhead.
Yeah. All right. Well, boys and girls, let's go ahead and give a round of applause for you.
Osio! Osio is hello in Cherokee. So can you turn to the left, right, and tell the person next to you? Osio! So they're learning Cherokee already. Those words you spoke are Cherokee for hello. Now, my Christian name is David Owens, but my Cherokee name is Tawori Kamihiki, which means red hot, keeper of stories. And these stories that we're going to share with you today are stories that my great-grandmother, her name was Gali Eskia Atanumbu, which in Cherokee means dancing heart. But her Christian name was Elizabeth Bell. So these were stories that she passed on, and we do those in honor of her. But before we get started, we'd like to talk a little bit about Cherokee etiquette. We'd ask if you have a cell phone or anything like that, if you could turn them off at this time. And to show the type of respect you would as if you were in a church, a synagogue, or a mosque, because these stories are considered sacred. Now, I'm dressed as a Cherokee would be dressed in the 1700s. I'm wearing elk skin moccasins. I'm wearing mountain goat spun pantaloons, a hunting frock, and a turban. Now, the Cherokees didn't wear the war bonnets like the Western Plains, and we wore the turban. In the early 1700s, seven Cherokee chiefs were taken to England to meet the great King George II. If you know your history, his son, George III, is who America fought its Revolutionary War with. But when they went over to meet him, Cherokees shaved their heads, and a lot of times would tattoo their heads so they looked fierce. So some of the people that was presenting the seven Cherokees to King George decided that they needed to look a little more civilized. So the servants of King George were from India and wore turbans. So they introduced the turban to the Cherokee, and they brought back that idea, and since that time, the Cherokee has always wore the turban. That's when you see paintings of great chiefs like Sequoia, Tuscatoha, and all those are always wearing the turban. Now, I'm wearing a medicine bag, which all Cherokees wear. This has 7 things sacred to me for my personal magic. Like I have a bear claw here. It's given to me, and one of the things that it's given to you must be a gift, so that was the one that's my gift. And other things, like one of the things, there's a gallstone for my mother in there. So that's why we carry the medicine bag. This is a gorget, which is a sign of leadership, which I'm one of the principal chiefs of the Southern Cherokee of Kentucky. And this amulet represents the Great Spirit, who we believe is without beginning or ending of days, and it's enclosed with a cross, which shows the 4 principal directions. And now I am carrying the talking stick. In Cherokee etiquette, when we're in council, as we are now, only the person wielding the talking stick is allowed to talk. And at the end of the presentation, you will be given a chance to ask questions, but you will need to have the answering stick. So that way we don't talk over each other. So at the end, she'll have that, and you have something to raise your hand, and she will give it to you. That way we won't talk over each other and be respectful of one another. Now my talking stick is red, white, and black, which is the typical Cherokee colors. If you went back in time and you met an Indian, much as military is today, the type of colors he's wearing tells what tribe he is from, and the way he wore his hair, and the way he dressed. Now the feathers on here, on my talking stick, are turkey feathers, because turkey represents wisdom. We're going to try to share some wisdom with you today. Now at the end of the storytelling, you're going to have a chance to go out and see a TV, half of you, and some of you can come up and see the artifacts. But we'll go ahead and get started with our storytelling. But first, the Konahinsky, the storyteller, would say to you, the Tinioshli. The Tinioshli is the young ones. I would say to you, no Joe Wa, which in Cherokee means, are you ready? So if you're ready to sit quietly and to listen with not only your ears, but your heart, you would say, oh wow. That means I am ready. So if you're ready to sit quietly and not interrupt and wait till the end to talk, I say to you, the Tinioshli, no Joe Wa, and you say, Wa. And I say, Osta. Osta is good. That tells me you're ready to hear the story. So how about we start off with the first story, the creation story. And it goes like this. Always was Yahweh, the great spirit, without beginning or ending of days. He took a stream from the medicine wheel and created the days of men. On the first day, he created Galutlati, the skyland, which is high above Mother Earth, where the spirits of our ancestors now live. On the second day, he created the Galutlati people, the skyland people, powerful spirits who control the nature of the universe. On the third day, he created Elisinunta, grandfather moon, who rules the night. On the fourth day, he created Elisinunta, grandmother sun, who rules the light. On the fifth day, he created Uduta Ni Wadi, father sky, who gives us the air we breathe and the wind on our face. And on the sixth day, he created Aluli Elohino, Mother Earth, and all was water. Yahweh then sent down sky people in the form of great turtles. They went under the water, and they dug the clay and made the land and the deep oceans. Then he sent the great Thunderbird down from Galutlati to fly over the land. The wind from his wings dried the land. And then he flew close to the ground. And when his wings went down, he created the valleys. And when his wings went up, he created the mountains. Yahweh then made the plant people to cover the land with the power of good and bad medicine. He then created the bird people, magnificent beings with the power of flight. Then he created the animal people from great Yansa, buffalo, to tiny shrew. Then he created the ones who swim in the water and crawl on the earth. Then Yahweh took clay and water from Mother Earth, and he formed it into Ashkelah and to Agaya, the first man and woman. Man he named Kanati, the father of all hunters. And Agaya, woman, he named Silu, corn woman. He blew lightning into their eyes, and they became the principal people. Silu, corn woman, and Kanati, the father of all hunters, are the great-grandparents of all Mother Earth's children. Then on the seventh day, Yahweh rested and looked on his creation and said, Osta, this is good. This is the legend of how the world is made. Now, the stories we're going to be sharing today, some are legends and some are folk tales. In practically all cultures, they did folk tales before coming on with television and computers and stuff. And the most three common forms are fairy tales, which are entertaining stories, folk tales, which are entertaining stories that teaches a lesson, and legends, which tells how things came to be or about hero. Like a fairy tale, you probably heard of Cinderella, or a folk tale you probably heard, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, because it teaches you not to lie, or the legend, you might have heard it like the legend of Hercules. Cherokees were the same way. And when we tell English stories, we usually begin with once upon a time. Well, we Cherokees do the same thing, but we say ATU, which means a long time ago. So with that, ATU, a long time ago, I'd like to tell you the story of G-Stu. G-Stu is Rabbit. And a long time ago, he had a long, beautiful, bushy tail, and he was always bragging about it. You might know someone like that who thinks they're all that. Well, he was always saying how his tail was the most beautiful of all the animal people. But if you look at G-Stu now, he has a short tail. And this is the story of how that came to be. Well, one particular cold winter, G-Stu Rabbit was going down the path and he met Chula. Chula is Fox. Now, Fox did not like Rabbit because Rabbit was always bragging on his long, beautiful, bushy tail. Fox had a beautiful, bushy tail himself. Well, Fox had caught a big string of fish where a spring runs into the river. And if you know anything about springs, no matter how cold it gets, they run up out of Mother Earth and they never freeze. So he set a fish trap where the spring ran into the river. Because all the creeks and everything were frozen because it was a very bitterly cold winter. Well, as Rabbit was walking down the path through the snow trying to find something to eat, he met Chula and he said, "Osio, Chula, that is a nice string of fish. Where did you catch them?" Now, Fox, remember, he does not like Rabbit, so he thought he would teach Rabbit a lesson. He said, "I caught them in the creek yonder." And Rabbit looked at the creek and he said, "The creek is frozen. You couldn't have caught them from the creek." And Fox said, "Well, that's where I caught them." And then Rabbit said, well, how did you catch them?" And Fox stopped carefully and he said, "I went out onto the ice and then I took a stick and I broke a hole in the ice and then I stuck my beautiful bushy tail down in the hole. And whenever I felt a pull at my tail, I lifted it up and that's how I caught all these fish." G-Stu said, "Is that true?" And Chula said, "Uh-huh." And with that, he went on down the path. Well, Rabbit was very hungry, not having any success finding anything to eat. So he thought he would try old Chula, Fox's way of fishing. So he looked around and found a stick, and he hopped out onto the creek, out onto the ice, and he broke a hole in the ice, and then he stuck his long, beautiful, bushy tail down into the hole. And as he sat, Gola, the coal maker, blew his icy breath. And the snow flurries was going, and Rabbit was getting colder and colder, and all the while felt no tugs on his tail. He thought, it is starting to get dark. Old Fox's way of fishing isn't working. I think I'll go home. So he tried to stand up. He tried to stand up. He had frozen fast to the ice. He began yelling, "Hasta la! Hasta la!" which is help me in Cherokee. Yona, the bear, was walking down the path and he hears, "Hasta la! Hasta la!" And he walks down to the creek looking through the snow and he goes, "G-Stu, is that you?" And Rabbit said, "Yes, it is me." And Bear said, "Well, what are you doing out on the ice?" Rabbit said, "I was trying to fish like the fox." Then Bear knew what had happened because Bear knew Fox did not like Rabbit. Well, Bear, he walked down to the edge of the creek, and he grabbed hold of a limb, and he stuck his huge paw out onto the ice to see if it would hold his weight. And then he walked out onto the ice where Rabbit was, and he grabbed Rabbit by the ears, and he pulled, and he pulled, but Rabbit did not come free. Bear had pulled so hard he stretched Rabbit's ears. That is why they are long today. And that you know this story is true. Well, Bear, he thought, he goes, I know what to do. And he walked around behind Rabbit and taking his huge paws, he put them under Rabbit's hind legs. And then he pulled with all his might and pull. Rabbit came free, which was good and bad. It was good that Rabbit was free from the ice, but down below, waving in the water, Rabbit's beautiful, bushy tail. From that time to this, Rabbit has had a short tail because Fox tripped him and Bear pulled it off. Rabbit teaches us the lesson in this story. Never brag on yourself because it will always come back to bite you in the tail. You go, ha, that's the way it was. So you can see how they taught the story. I was going to ask you, have you ever, or who can tell me what this is? All right. What's this? Yeah. So we can also talk to your picture. It's an antler. This is a deer antler. And only male deers have antlers, but in the beginning, it was not so. So this is the story of how deer got his antlers. And it goes like this. And it involves Rabbit. A long time ago, G-Stu, Rabbit, and Galligini deer were always arguing over who was fastest of the animal people. Galligini deer would say, I can leap a great distance in a single bound. While G-Stu Rabbit would say, oh yeah? While you're up in the air, I will run and get there before you come down. Well, the other animals soon became tired of hearing this argument. So they went and seen Yonah, Bear, principal chief of the animal people, about a way to settle this argument. And Bear said, well, what do you have in mind? And the animals said, let's have a great race. Bear thought that was a good idea, so he called Deer and Rabbit to council and said, since you two are always arguing over who is fastest of the animal people, let's have a race and see who's the fastest. Well, Galligini Deer, he immediately agreed, while G-Stu Fox, well, he was a little slow. He said, well, I don't run for nothing. So it was decided to have Dahi Beaver carve a prize, a beautiful set of antlers. Well, Galligini Deer, he immediately agreed to run for the antlers, while Rabbit again hesitated. He said, well, I'm not from around here. Where would we race? Bear said, we will use Yansa, Buffalo, the Roadmaker's trace. Well, Deer again immediately agreed, and Rabbit again was a little slow. He said, well, could I go and look at the trace? So the animal said, okay, that's fair. So they were sitting there waiting to get the race started, and Rabbit went to look at Buffalo's trace, and he stayed gone a long time. So Bear sent Yajasti is Possum. So he sent Possum to go and look for Bear. So Possum went to Buffalo's trace to look for him, or to look for Rabbit, and he did not find him. But in the curves of Buffalo's trace, he found shortcuts chewed through the thickets. Rabbit was planning to cheat. Possum went back and told Bear. So when Rabbit came back, Bear said, Rabbit, Possum said that you were planning to cheat. And Rabbit said, oh no, I wasn't planning to cheat. So Bear said, let's all go and see who is telling the truth. So they went to Buffalo's trace, and sure enough, in the curves, they found the shortcuts chewed through the thickets. So Bear said, G-Stu, Rabbit, because you plan to cheat, you cannot wear the antlers with honor and respect. So therefore, there will be no race. So Bear called Deer forward, he bowed down on his knees, and he put the antlers on his head Deer has worn the antlers with honor and respect from that day to this, while Geese and Rabbit still choose the thickets to remind him life is not an easy road. But Galagini, deer, loses his antlers once a year to remind him it was not always so. Deer and rabbit teach us the lesson in this story. Honor and respect leads to the road to success, while cheaters never win and winners never cheat. This is how deer got his antlers. So you can see how you listen, you might learn something in this. So often the Cherokee would tell the Tenochtitlan a word that means for you to listen and for you to learn. And I was trying to think of another word for you. But let's go on to our next story. How about we tell you about Sally Googie Oosty? Sally Googie Oosty is turtle. Have you ever noticed how a turtle's shell looks like pieces of a puzzle that has been put back together? Well, in the beginning, it was not so. Turtle had a beautiful, shiny, smooth shell with not a crack in it. And this is the story of how Sally Googie Oosty Turtle cracked his shell. And it goes like this. A long time ago, in a beautiful valley, in a beautiful pond, lived Sally Googie Oosty, little turtle. All his life, he dreamed about flying. Have you ever dreamed about flying? Well, Turtle would do this all the time. He even asked his friend Wallow's frog about a way he could fly. Wallow's frog thought this was silly. He said, "Whoever heard of a flying turtle?" Still, Turtle did not give up his dream of flying. One day in the fall season, as he was out on his rock in the middle of his pond, he looked up, and above he could see a group of geese flying. They came circling in to land on his pond. He looked at them as they came gliding in with their giant feather fingers. He thought they were beautiful, and how wonderful it must be to fly. After they landed, he swam over to the leader, Sasa, and he said, "Could you teach me to fly? Could you teach me to fly?" And Sasa said, "You silly turtle, you have no feathers, you have no wings, you could not possibly fly." Still, Turtle wanted to fly. He said, "Well, if I could think of a way to fly, would you take me with you to the land of the south where summer lives all year?" And Sasa said, yes, because he was beginning to get annoyed with Turtle. "If you can think of a way to fly with us, you can come with us." Turtle was overjoyed. He swam back, climbed up in his rock, and he thought, and then he studied some more. Then he remembered what Wallows, his friend Frog, had said about him. And you might have heard this said about Turtle. How once he bites hold of something, he won't let go till it thunders. Turtle thought, that's it. That's how I will fly. He could get a long, strong, sturdy stick, bite the middle, swim up between two geese, lift the stick up, and one goose could get the stick with his bill on this end, and another goose could swim up and get this end of the stick with his bill, and he could fly with them. He wouldn't need feathers. He wouldn't need wings. Well, he crawled off his rock and went and told Sasa his idea. Yes, you can do that. So we will honk you when we're ready. So the geese began feeding. It wasn't long after this that they finished feeding. They started honking the signal, and Turtle grabbed his stick, slid off his rock, swim over between two large geese, and then he stretched out his neck as far as he could, holding up the stick, and two geese come up behind him. One took the end of the stick with his bill, the other swam up and took the end of the stick with his bill, and began paddling their webbed feet and flapping their wings, and skip into the air they went, higher and higher into Father's sky. And as Sally Googie was looking down, his pond got smaller, smaller. As he was flying, he was amazed at his view. And as he looked down, he saw a flash of light. He had not realized that they had flown into a storm cloud. And then he heard a loud clash of thunder, and without thinking, he let go of the stick. Down he fell, spinning around and around, upside down. And as he fell, he closed his eyes and he prayed to Yahweh to spare his life. He landed with a sudden thud. He opened his eyes. He was lying. But all around were the fragments of his once beautiful, shiny, smooth shell. Then the Great Spirit appeared in Sally Googie's mind. The voice said, Sally Googie Usti, what are you doing? And Turtle said, I was trying to fly. Flying, said the voice. Flying? Turtles are important the way they are, and I need them in the circle of life. And with that, the Great Spirit made Father Wind go around in a circle. All the pieces of Sally Googie's shell came back together. And that is why they look like the puzzle, because they were put together that day. And after this happened, embarrassed, Sally Googie, he crawled to the nearest pond, went down under the water, dug himself in the soft mud, and slept there the whole winter. Ever since that time, Sally Googie Usti and his descendants all have cracked shells. But if you see turtles out in the bright sunshiny sun, out on a lake, pond, or a stream, you will see them stretched out in the sun. Their legs will be stretched out as far as they can, and their necks and their eyes will be closed. And they will be dreaming of flying, which is a lot better to do if you're a turtle. Turtle teaches us a lesson. Be who you are. Do not try to be who you are not. This is how turtle cracked the shell. So the next time you see that, you'll know that's what happened to Sally Googie Usti. Have you ever seen a bat? You know what bat? We call him the Lamiha. Have you ever noticed that bats are always alone? Do you ever see bats flying with other birds? Or they're always alone, and they always come out at night. Well, this is the story of how that came to be. And it's called Why the Lamiha Bat Flies Alone at Night. And it starts off not very far from here. It goes like this. Atu, a long time ago, Awahali, eagle, king of the bird people, and Tawoli, hawk, were talking. And Tawoli said, you know, there are so many of the bird people that I don't know everyone. I think it would be a good idea to have a bird people feast so we can all get together and know each other. Well, Eagle thought that was a good idea. So he sent out a decree all through the forest to tell all the bird people to meet at Pinnacle Rock. And if you know where Pinnacle Rock is, it's not very far from here, next to Berea, Kentucky, a place called Indian Fort Theater. Rock of the Eagles is what we call it. Well, that's where all the bird people came on the next new moon to have the bird people's feast. They came, Jacopa, Robin, the fire starter, got there first and started the fire, but he got too close to the flame. That's the reason his breast is red. Well, he started the flame, had a big fire, and a big cookout. They even played the stickball game. But during the feast, along came the Lamiha, bat, and he asked Awahali Eagle, he said, why wasn't I invited to the bird people's feast? He said, I have wings and I can fly. See, I am a bird. And Awahali said, why, yes, you are. You are welcome. Come and join our feast. So the Lamiha bat joined the bird people's feast. So it wasn't too long after this that Jonah, Bear, principal chief of the animal people, heard about the feast, and he thought that was a good idea. So he also sent out messengers to tell all the animal people to come to an animal people's feast that was to be held at Cumberland Falls, which is also not very far from here, next to a place called Portage, Kentucky. So all the animal people came together on the next full moon at Cumberland Falls for an animal people's feast. They danced and sang and had a big time. Even Sequel, pig, danced and sang. And that was a funny thing to see. Well, during the merriment, along come the Lamihawks back, and he asked Bear, he said, "Why wasn't I invited to the animal people's feast?" He goes, "See, I have ears, and I have teeth, and I have fur. See, I'm an animal." And Bear said, "Why, yes you are. Come and join the animal people's feast. You are welcome." And did Lamihawk join the animal people's feast too? Well, it wasn't long after this that Taylor Squirrel and Jocopa Robin were talking up in Nochi, a tall pine tree. And Taylor Squirrel asked Jocopa Robin, he said, "Well, how was the bird people's feast?" And Robin said, "Oh, we had a good time." He started telling about all the things they've done. And then he began listing all who had come: Sasa, Goose, Frou, Martin, Suli, Buzzard, the Lamiha, Bat. And Taylor said, "Lamiha? Did you say squirrel?" And Robin said, "Yes, he told us he was a bird." "Why do you ask?" And Taylor Squirrel said, "Because the Lamiha, Bat came to our feast too. He told us he was an animal. They knew this would not do, so they reported the Lamiha to the council." So the council sent for the Lamiha to come and appear before them, and Taylor Squirrel and Jocopa Robin testified against the Lamiha. Then after that, Awahali, Eagle, king of the bird people, said to the Lamiha, "Back, because you ate with the bird people, and then you went and ate with the animal people, you are no longer welcome among the bird people." And then Jonah, Bear, principal chief of the animal people, said, "Lamiha, because you ate with the bird people, and then you came and ate with the animal people, you are no longer welcome among the animal people. You are outcasts." That's why the Lamiha Bear flies all alone at night, because he lied. He tried to be Talib. Two things at the same time. The Lamiha Bat teaches us the lesson in this story. Never wear two faces, because if you do, you will belong to no village. That's the way it was. So whenever you see the Lamiha now, know that's why he flies alone, because he is a liar. So don't be a liar. Now, this land that we live in here is called Kentucky. But the Cherokees, we call it Kentucky, which means the land of the great meadow. Now, our neighbors to the north, the Shawnee, and the Delaware called it Katati, which meant the land of tomorrow. Now, it's not so much now, but for years and years, Kentucky was the land of tall tobacco. And this is the story of how Kentucky became the land of tall tobacco. And also sometimes it's called how Wahula, hummingbird, brought back tobacco. And it goes like this. A long time ago, a beloved village woman, she who holds the sun for her people, became deathly ill. And they sent for the village medicine man, Ohak, to come and examine her. Well, he went to Hosa Sun's lodge and examined her, and he knew he could heal her with the sacred medicine tobacco plant. See, Cherokees uses tobacco as medicine. When I was a little boy, if I got stung, put tobacco on it, draw out the poison. If you had a earache, they'd go smoking it to cure your earache. So, at that time, there was only one tobacco plant in the entire world, and it grew by the council house of the medicine. So he went back to get a leaf from the medicine plant to go and heal Hoses' son. But when he got there, the plant was gone. And upon investigation, there was a huge hole in the ground with geese tracks all around. Now, in those days, geese were known as fierce fighters. You didn't want to mess with the goose unless you really had it. Well, old Hop, he called for counsel of all the warriors. He began by saying that Hoses' son, the beloved woman of the village, was deathly ill, and their village medicine had been stolen by the geese and flown to their camp in the south. He said, unless someone would go and bring back tobacco, Hoses' son would surely die. Who will go? The circle of warriors looked around, and standing turkey, the cleverest of all the other warriors, stood up and said, I will go. Well, he soon headed south, and he found the geese's camp. He crept up on the location, and he saw the medicine plant where they had transplanted it under a tall ash tree next to their camp. And guarding the plant was a goose, one lone goose. He stealthily walked up on the location, he'd taken his gachati, his bow, and an arrow, notched it, pointed it at the goose, aimed, and the goose saw him just as he let go of the arrow. The arrow hit its mark, and the goose fell dead, but just before it hit, he sounded the alarm and alarmed the other geese, who flogged Standing Turkey, knocked him to the ground, and killed him. Back at the council house, old Hop sensed what had happened. He called the warriors again to council. He said, Standing Turkey would not be returning. Everyone knew what this meant. He said, now who will go? And Galagina, and the Galagina deer, fastest of the animal people, stepped forward and said he would go. With his great speed, he was soon at the geese's camp. And when he got there, he discovered there was an entire ring of guards around the tobacco plant. He rushed from the forest, leaped over the guards, and almost got to the plant when he too was flogged, knocked to the ground, and killed. Well, once again, old Hop, the medicine man, sensed what had happened. He called another council. He said, Galagina deer would not be returning. Now who would go? And then Yonah, bear, chief, strongest of all animal people, stepped forward and said he would go. Well, he soon followed Galagini's tracks and came to the geese's camp. Seeing the guards, he rushed from the forest and using his great strength. But the geese were many. See, geese, they're usually many. And they flogged Bear, knocked him to the ground, and killed him. Once again, old Hop sensed what happened. He called one final council. He said, unless someone would go bring the tobacco back by morning, Hoses' son would surely die. He said, Standing Turkey, cleverest of hunters, had been killed. Galagini, deer, fastest of the animal people, had been killed. Yonah, bear, strongest of all animal people, had been killed. Now who will go? They looked around the circle of warriors, and there was silence. Then a very small voice was heard. It said, and I will go. The warrior said, who was that? They looked around. It was Wahula, hummingbird. The warrior said, you are smallest of the bird people. What can you do? Wahula said, I will try. Will anyone else go? He looked around. Again, silence. Wahula then soon flew south to the geese's camp. He landed on the limb of the ash tree. He looked around. He had not been seen. He then flew down and landed on the tobacco plant. He still was not seen. And then he plucked off the leaf, pinched off the seeds, rolled them up in his bill, and flew away unseen. When he returned to the council house, he gave the leaf and seeds to old Hop. He took the leaf, crumbled it, folded it, lit it, waved the smoke over Hosea's son's face, and cured her. Then he called all the warriors together. Taking the seed, he gave each a seed and said, "Take these, go and plant them all over our land so we will not want for our medicine again." This is how Kunta Kee, Kentucky, became the land of tall tobacco. Wahula, hummingbird, teaches us a lesson in this story. And it is this: we should never judge someone by the shell they live in. That is wrong. Rather, we should judge someone by the heart that lives in the shell. This is the story of how Kunta Kee, Kentucky, became the land of tall tobacco. So you can see how this all teaches a lesson. I think they're getting a little rested. How about we let them stand up for a minute and stretch? Maybe you want them to get a drink of water or something, maybe.